and welcome to CX Today. My name is Charlie. I am the head of publication here, and I'm thrilled today to introduce a discussion around CCaaS pricing models and which may be the best options for you. Now, this is an incredibly hot topic currently with AI set to transform the contact center industry. And joining me for today's conversation are two excellent speakers. Yesterday, I'm delighted to be joined by Zeus Kerravala, Principal Analyst at ZK Research, and Heidi Elmore, a Senior Product Manager at Amazon Connect. Thanks very much both for joining me for this discussion, and let's get right on into it. And I want to start by pinpointing this key trend that contact center providers are struggling to price their offerings as AI threatens to trouble seat counts, as they've historically tied their pricing models to those seat counts. And that's causing a lot of rethinking within the space, and a lot of brands are trying out different types of pricing models. I don't know, Zeus, if you could maybe start on this one by talking about the different types of pricing models that you see for CCaaS out there right now.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a mess right now. And I think it is because of what you said. We're moving to AI, and the per seat model was really designed for people, right? You have a certain number of people and a certain number of seats, and so you charge that way. And of course, once you start getting to virtual agents and AI models and things like that, there's no people. And so we're trying to take a new thing and apply the old pricing model to it. And we've seen this play out before, right? If you think back to the early days of voice over IP, people were still trying to count lines, even though there were no lines. And so right now, pricing's a bit all over the map. There's the per seat model, and I think the vendors in a lot of ways prefer that because it's nice, it's neat, it's tidy, it's predictable. From a financial perspective on the earnings call, they know most of their number going into it. The other side, if you put the pendulum all the way to the other side, it's pure utilization based, that you just pay for what you need. And then there's a whole bunch of other things in the middle you could do. Some companies have tried to use some kind of outcome-based pricing, where if you think about what is the outcome you're trying to achieve, like perhaps cutting the number of agents, you can maybe take a piece of the savings. If you're trying to raise revenue, you can take a piece of the gain, but trying to come up with a percent of whatever that outcome is. And then there's also, I've seen vendors try and apply, you think of the old long distance model where you charge a flat rate up to a certain cap, and then you charge the overage above that. I've never really liked that model because I think it's kind of unfair that I get charged for stuff I don't use, but then as soon as I want to use a little bit more, you're going to charge me on top of that. And then there's just, there's hybrid models and things like that. But I think what confuses customers is there's no set standard for this yet. There's a bunch of different things the vendors could do, and they're experimenting with all of them because I'm not really sure they know what to do in the face of this change.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then there's another one that I've seen out there, and it's like a freemium model where you have tiered pricing, and then as you unlock different tiers, you can gain new capabilities. But then even that has its downsides, I suppose, as you're tying contact centers to specific capabilities instead of offering a more tailored package where contact centers can leverage the features that are best for them. So I think this is a fascinating conversation, and one vendor that's leading the way in this, I think, certainly if you've also read the latest Gartner Magic Quadrant report for CCaaS, and that is AWS. And this is where I bring you in, Heidi. I don't know if you could maybe talk a little bit more, a little bit about the pricing model that AWS has implemented for Amazon Connect and what sets it apart from some of those others that Zeus has just highlighted.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Charlie. And thanks for having us here. So Amazon Connect has used consumption-based pricing since day one and back when it launched. And that's always distinguished it from traditional customer experience solutions. So instead of that per agent seat licenses or those long-term contracts, Connect charges based off of actual usage. So that means, you only pay for the services and features that you use, and you're typically billed, per minute, per message, and so forth. So the most intuitive benefit of this model is its flexibility. So allowing organizations to scale up or down based off demand without being locked into a specific capacity. And you can imagine if you're a seasonal business, you aren't tied to the high watermark of the number of agents that you might have or concurrent agents at the busiest time of your year. But I think the most interesting part of this model is that Amazon Connect rewards efficiency improvements. So you can literally save money with each efficiency added to your design, and your customers benefit from those innovations. So it's this, we love virtuous cycles here at Amazon. It's a virtuous cycle of innovation, customer satisfaction, and cost savings. And organizations can experiment and try new features and configurations easily with consumption-based pricing as well. So you turn something on, you do a little A/B testing. If it works, great. If it doesn't do what you expect, no problem. Turn it off. You aren't losing anything. So while consumption-based pricing might just seem like another pricing model, there's an underlying cultural implication that this pricing promotes. So by pricing on usage rather than seats, you motivate organizations to continuously improve, and this really promotes a culture of innovation.
Yeah, it actually helps with unpredictability too. I recall shortly after the pandemic, I ran into an AWS customer at CCW, and she was telling me that nowhere did the limitations of the seat-based pricing model become more apparent than during the pandemic. Because this person worked for a hotel chain, and as you can imagine, when the pandemic hit, their call volume went way up because people were canceling hotels. They wanted to know status, and so they had to staff up. But then they were locked in to that high number of agents. And then, of course, what happens? People stop traveling, so the number drops way down. But you're still stuck paying this amount, even though you're only using this amount. And after she switched to Connect, one of the things she did say was the variability of it. At first, she kind of felt like she was getting nickel and dimed a little bit, but then when you model it out over a year, it was way cheaper.
That's right.
And in some ways, what the seat-based pricing model is it takes the maximum utilization you'll have over the year, and you pay that all year long, thereby not ever exceeding that amount, right? And so it's great for the vendor, not so great for the customer. But like I said, when you have for seasonal businesses, for unpredictable things like when the pandemic hit, it's just you're locked in and you're just paying for a bunch of stuff you're not using.
Excellent. Lots of really great stuff there. And Zeus, you mentioned how AWS is perhaps less tied to traditional pricing, allowing it to pivot much more seamlessly to other pricing models than its competition. But I don't know if you could also give more of a take on the Amazon Connect pricing model in itself and the possible benefits that it provides to end users.
Yeah, I think one of the ones Heidi talked about, and this is really big today in the AI era, is the ability to innovate and try stuff, right? So if you think about if I had to commit to a certain number of seats over the course of a year, I'd be very cautious about doing that without knowing the benefits I'm going to get. But if I want to try out a virtual agent, if I want to try out a new chatbot, I want to try out some AI algorithms or something, I can just try them out, run them with a small set of agents, and pay for that. And then if it's successful, I can ramp up. And then if I'm not, then I scale that back and try something else. And so I think the utilization-based or consumption-based pricing is really effective in this era where there's market transitions and a lot of unpredictability, because I'm able to try things out, I'm able to innovate, and I'm able to transform my company without having to commit to a huge upfront amount of spend, which is typically what you have to do with software.
Yeah, and I guess with contact centers as well, you already have that ability to forecast demand. So many operations can quite accurately forecast the amount of contact volumes that they're going to get. Of course, that will fluctuate in the near future with AI coming more and more into the picture and taking up much of that contact. But yeah, you get my point.
Yeah, so if it's mature, sure, you know that, right? I think most contact center managers can tell you to the call how many, when the new product is launched, how many they're going to get. But if I'm rolling out virtual agents and I'm rolling out chatbots, I don't know how many customers are going to adopt that. And maybe a lot, it may be a few. Maybe I got to rebuild my website to make it easier to find. right? And so if I have to commit to a huge amount of spend, like I said, I'm less likely to do that than if I can just try it out, pay for what I use, and then ramp it up from there. And it helps you scale up, helps you scale down. And I think again, even with seasonal businesses, you think of law firms or accounting firms around tax time, retailers during Thanksgiving and Christmas, right? They all use significantly more minutes during those periods of seasonality than they do in other times.
Great points, really insightful. And it actually reminds me of a case study I read about with Samsung, and where they discussed why they chose to move to the cloud with their contact center and with AWS, and they cited many of the same benefits that you just mentioned. And there's lots of great value there, but it's also interesting to consider how Amazon is helping contact centers to reduce costs beyond just the pricing model alone. I don't know, Heidi, if you could maybe share a little bit about that as well.
Sure. I mean, first of all, I just repeat everything that you said. I do believe that AI demands this new consumption-based pricing, and not just because AI is going to reduce costs, because it can, but that culture of innovation I was talking about before, you have to have that in order to look at which interactions demand the empathy and the intuition of human agents, and which repeatable high-volume interactions can be handled through automation, and automation can obviously help reduce costs. But AI is more than just, I think that there's some weirdness still around this idea of using AI to reduce agents or make AI just a productivity benefit, which obviously I think that'll obviously accrue over time. But we're actually, on the AWS side, we think AI is going to help human agents provide higher fidelity interactions. And that higher fidelity interaction is what's going to improve customer satisfaction, reduce costs, and so forth. So we believe in the value of AI so much here at Connect that we've actually included it in the pricing for every channel. So whether it's summarization, agent assist, self-service, you can use all the AI technology you want in a simple per minute or per message price. And this pricing structure, again, we believe it will inherently help save customers money, but more importantly, it's future-proof. So you can add new technologies without additional licensing costs or potential technical debt. And when new capabilities become available, you can try them without, commitment or hesitation, because it's going to be tied to your usage. So the flexibility is what is going to enable business to stay at the forefront of CX technology without financial barriers.
Yeah, and I think it's those financial barriers why we haven't seen, at least from the vendor side, more consumption-based pricing. I do think the risk for a company that has lived off per seat pricing for years is that their financial models are baked into that, and so they have to report numbers to Wall Street. And as we go through this transition, it's very disruptive to the company, and that's why even when you saw before, when hardware companies move from perpetual licensing to recurring revenue, it creates a big disruption. And I think that's why we haven't seen more of it. From an Amazon perspective, I mean, AWS has always priced things on consumption, so it's standard operating procedure. And so I think in a lot of ways, the way AWS operates made this the shift in this pricing model quite a bit easier for Amazon than it did for other companies.
Perfect. Again, lots of really great stuff there. And I think that just about does it for today's conversation. But if you wish to learn more about Amazon Connect and its pricing model, I'll leave a link in the description below. But for now, I want to thank Zeus and Heidi for joining me today, and also everyone for watching. Bye for now.